even in the difficulties, and we have had many over our parenting journey, there are so many amazing moments and experiences and memories. And we can choose to also focus on those, like those diamonds, those pieces of gold, like those are happening too. And when we're stressed, it's harder for us to see them. So it's really trying to focus on the good, the growth, the joy, those moments in the context of the larger whole. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to September's Sitting Down with Dr. Dan. It is back to school and back to fall, and our audio engineer, Phil Rossi, joins us today in our virtual studio to answer your listener questions. And as you know, every month on these episodes, we answer what you submit to us via Facebook, X, Instagram, and email, podcast@drdanpeters.com. We read every question. We look forward to them. And it's time to do this. Hello, Phil. How's it going?
It is, well, I think I'm in a state of disorientation because I feel like summer was happening. And then all of a sudden it was back to school, back to hectic schedules, homework, sports, activities. What happened?
It happens. There's this... People are saying that time is actually moving faster for some reason right now, and it might be related to the stars. But most everyone I talk to is bringing up the idea that time seems to be moving really fast and faster than usual.
That seems to be universally what I've been hearing from my friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we could spend a whole episode talking about time, but
the time-space continuum.
I mean, is time even linear? I think it's our perception as human beings of the shape that time takes, and its passage is subject to our perception at the time.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Yes.
But yeah, it has. It's going by, and so everyone, I hope you're doing your best to live in the moment, because these moments are hurtling past us at lightning speed these days.
In nonlinear fashion.
Yes. Which means they're coming from all directions.
Yes.
Which is how it feels. And speaking from coming from all directions, we have just heard at the end of August from the Surgeon General, who has released advisory on the mental health and well-being of parents, entitled Parents Under Pressure. Dr. Dan, I know you want to talk about this at the top of today's episode because there was a recent article in USA Today reporting that these dire findings anchor a 35-page report released in late August, as I said, that posits parental stress as an urgent public health issue. It draws on data from the American Psychological Association and other sources to build a case that parents are facing more stress than at perhaps any other time in recent history. So, Dr. Dan, can you break this report down for us and, of course, share your thoughts and what you're seeing?
Absolutely. So, yes, I have been looking forward to talking about this study, the data and the report, because it is both alarming and at the same time, I think will be comforting in a sense to parents out there listening, because it's not surprising given the load that we know that parents have these days, and we just to have all this data in one place, it just jumps off the page. So I'm going to go through some of the most salient data, and then we're going to talk about what we can do about it.
Sounds great.
So first off, 2/5 of parents say that on most days they quote, are so stressed they cannot function. So 2 out of 5 parents so stressed they can't function. Roughly half of parents state that stress is, quote, completely overwhelming. 1/3 of parents with children under 18 rate their stress level as an 8 or higher on a
Mm.
10-point scale. So now we're a third, right? These are
Yeah.
big. These
These are
are
big
big
numbers.
numbers. Yeah. 2/5 report being, quote, so stressed they feel numb. 3/5 say stress makes it hard to focus. 2/3 are consumed by money woes and stress. And parents report markedly higher rates of stress than non-parents, which I don't think is a surprise to everyone.
Right. Mhm.
And so if we just stop right there, those are big, hairy numbers about the impact of, I want to say, we can't necessarily say of parenting, but it's parents who are parenting and are also having their lives outside of parenting. And so when we think about what this show is all about, which is to raise healthy kids, parents have to work on their own health and be in positive relationships and be aware of who they are and how they are functioning. This really puts a spotlight on how difficult it is for parents to do that. So for everyone listening who, we know this is all aspirational for us, right? We want to be aware people. We want to be aware parents. We want to know where we came from. We want to do the things we liked that our parents did and not do the things that we didn't like, and provide our kids with a life that we vision for them. It is all in the face of this reality
Right.
of
Yes.
and so in terms of the stressors, they talk about rising childcare costs, increase time demand on parents having to do multiple things like work and parent, and help their own parents, and also managing technology, which is also not a big surprise. The stress
Right.
of managing social media and technology is a big stressor. So let's take a collective pause here and sit with this for a second, which is parenting does have a lot of demands. It is really stressful. We are having to live our own lives as individuals while also guiding, being responsible for, and in many cases, worrying about our little people as they're growing in a world which is constantly changing and highly stressful, um, with everything from the environment to war to politics to natural disasters to violence and shootings. I mean, it's a lot. So we just have to acknowledge it first off and have some grace for ourselves. Everyone does the best they can in the moment. People can debate that and say I could do better, but I'm just going to go generally. We're all doing the best we can most of the time, and
Yeah.
yes, we always want to grow and be better, but we're just trying to get through it a lot of the time. So, a few things for us to think about is when acknowledging this reality, I always think about what can we control and what are the things that we can't control. Because when we're overwhelmed, it's usually we just don't even know what to grab. It's like grabbing
Right.
at clouds. We're like walking on quicksand. And it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? How can I first care for myself? Do I have 2 minutes a day that I could just sit and breathe? Can I go get a little nature? Can I look out the window get some air on my face? Can I read something? Can I listen to something, music that gives me joy? Like how do you recenter? How do you recharge? And when you look at what's coming at you in your day and your kid's day, what are you going to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think
Mm-hmm.
when we're trying to catch all the balls that are coming at us, we're inevitably going to drop them and get hit in the face.
I was
And
just going to say, right in the
right,
face.
right. And I think most of the time we have more balls coming at us, particularly with media, that we can handle. So part of it is like choosing a few balls to catch and to focus on,
Right. Yeah.
and to know that you can't do it all. You can't do it all great. And this makes me think of also those of us perfectionists out here where we have a very high expectation for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and usually many aspects of life. And so where this comes in to what I was just saying is, what do you want to focus on to try to do really well? And what are the other things that you can just do like okay? Like not everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to eat and our kids need to eat, but they don't all have to be amazing meals, right? Like we just can't.
Right.
And
No.
and so many of us want to have these family meals all the time. Well, with everyone coming and going and different work schedules, that's not going to be possible. And then to beat yourself up over it, like we got to let that go. It's quality over
Yeah.
quantity. Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
a few more thoughts here is I think we have to also acknowledge the stress load of our kids
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
there's been the mental health crisis that that Surgeon General's been talking about as well. Like there's the mental
Yeah.
health crisis, often, um, related. It gotten worse with COVID, but then when it comes to social media, the studies show the mental health crisis started long before
Right.
for
Mhm.
children and teens before the pandemic. And so this has been going on a long time. And so now we have this thing of, okay, we're trying to help our kids get healthy, but we're struggling too.
Right.
So I really just think we've got to really put mental health forward and self-care forward, um, as we're going in about our day. And I know you have thoughts, but I want to say this one last thing here is where the Surgeon General concludes, because this is so overwhelming on the individual basis, is of course policy implications and recommendations, right? Like this has to start.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
structural issues going on in our society that are causing all of this. So I'm just going to say a few of these things for us to think about, and many of our listeners are active in their communities, so these are all things to be lobbying for and to get involved with. So expanding programs, funding for programs such as Head Start, Healthy Start, helping parents with early education and healthcare needs. Like this is nothing new. We've been talking
Right.
about this for a long
Mhm.
time. Um, of course, on a larger level, national paid family and medical leave. Um, invest in infrastructure to bring parents and caregivers together, community parks and programs, because the other thing that we have is the loneliness epidemic that
Yeah. Yeah.
is happening. So we know that we
Mhm.
need these villages. And finally, of course, affordable, high quality mental health care. And so we're
Yes.
working
Yeah.
on physical health care, but we also need this for mental health care.
Yeah. 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 I mean, in terms of having much to add to that, I can't say that I have much to add. I feel like you hit the important points. One thought occurred to me when you were talking about self-care and taking a few minutes to do this or that. I think it's important for folks to have that realization that self-care doesn't have to be an hour-long walk. It could be a 5-minute walk around the block and just getting away and resetting and being present just in the activity of walking. It is, again, it's not about, once you start saying, "Oh, I don't have time for that," or "I can't really enjoy exercise if I don't have a full hour to exercise and then 20 minutes to cool down and then 30 minutes to, shower and change." Yeah, we have to also be realistic in what our expectations of what our self-care can be.
Hmm.
And I think we have to give ourselves we have to trust that the self-care, even if it's 5 minutes, is
Hmm.
going to be far superior than 0 minutes.
Yes.
And the nice thing too is the unexpected benefit of giving yourself 2 minutes to just sit and look out a window, or two
Hmm.
minutes to read a page and a half in a book.
Hmm.
Just like with most things,
Hmm.
the more you practice self-care, the more natural it's going to feel. And the easier it's going to be to shift into that self-care mode. And then the effect compounds and you start feeling a little better and your stress comes down a little bit. And
Hmm.
again, it's all part of the larger equation to feeling better, but self-care is a critical component, and I can't stress it enough just from a personal standpoint that
Mhm.
once I kind of made a decision that self-care is going to be part of every single day. And I've got the crazy parent schedule. We've got a varsity athlete. We've got a theater participant. We've got our day jobs. We've got our side hustles. We've got a house to take care of. Parents. So again, there is when you say I don't have time,
Mhm.
there is always the opportunity to make time.
Mhm.
Because remember, as we said at the top of the show, I mean, time is a big part of time is how we perceive time, and
Yes.
it's a construct of our self awareness and the awareness of what's going on around us. So,
Mhm.
given that, feel empowered to
Yeah.
you can make time,
Mhm.
and that's I think the most important thing that I can say from my personal experience is that it doesn't matter. You can always conjure 2 minutes, and those 2 minutes can make a big difference.
Mhm. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the people when you're saying, yeah, you'll feel better, and then that will build. You'll get used to being in that space when you're feeling stressed. And I'm thinking of people, but yeah, like everything outside will still be just as my life situation will still be the same.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
so then
yeah,
like
yeah.
yes, it will,
Yes, it will.
and it made me think of some Dalai Lama ideas, some Buddhist
Mm,
ideas that he espouses, which is that one is that we can be okay even if our life situation is not okay,
hmm Yeah.
which I think is profound, right? It's
Yes.
separating
Yes.
internal from external because we
Yes.
know there is atrocities that humans are enduring, that humans have
Yeah.
endured, and Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, talking about the Holocaust too, about his what came out of that experience in his own personal experience and the study and observation of the other prisoners was those that often persisted, um, made meaning in their everyday life, found
Yeah.
meaning in the struggle.
Yeah.
So that's one thought. The other thought that came to me is how the acknowledgement of Dalai Lama also says, when we don't accept reality, that is one of the primary reasons for internal suffering is not
hmm
accepting reality. So accepting a reality that this is hard, given all of this data to validate many people's experiences. I think if we accept it, it takes a little of the edge off. Like it's still
Yeah.
hard, but there's nothing wrong with you. Like you are not alone. There's so
Right.
many people experiencing that.
Yeah.
And then finally, just what the Surgeon General concluded, he has two kids, and he talked about it is the hardest job he's ever had and also the most rewarding. And that makes me think about how even in the difficulties, and we have had many over our parenting journey, there are so many amazing moments and experiences and
hmm
memories, and we
hmm
can choose to also focus on those, like those
Yes.
diamonds, those pieces of gold, like those are happening too. And when we're stressed, it's harder for us to see them. So
Yes.
it's really trying to focus on the good, the growth, the joy, those moments in the context of the larger whole.
Yeah. And one parting comment, which might end up being become part of our conversation here, but few weeks ago, I said to my own therapist, I said, I don't get it. It's so easy to focus on the hard stuff and the things that are stressing us out. And it seems to take more effort to focus on, gratitude or the things that are good or going well or those positive moments. And through our conversation, we decided that's okay because that is a natural sort of built-in imperative. If you think about it, it's our survival instinct. Of course, we're
Hmm.
going to focus on that which is causing us harm, which stress is harmful, but that doesn't mean that we cannot you know, shift our awareness to the positive things with some effort, and the effort is worthwhile.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can make a whole
We can
episode out of
go
this.
off on that, and I know we've got other.
We got questions.
Yeah.
Our amazing listeners have sent us great questions. So, hey, thanks for breaking that down, Dr. Dan. I hope folks check out the article, and I hope they share their thoughts with us through social media and all of our other outlets. But let's move along. All right. Question number 2. My high school student is a freshman who was cut from the very competitive soccer team, and he's devastated. Any advice?
Back to acknowledgement and validation. Like, that sucks. It absolutely sucks. And this is something for most committed high-level performing athletes, it happens at some time. And we just don't know when it's going to happen, right? Is it going to happen now in high school? Is it going to happen during high school? Is it going to happen when you don't get selected or an opportunity to play in college, during college, the end of college? So it's tough, because what happens in our culture often is the high performing athletes, it becomes their identity. And there's lots of reasons for that. And it does serve a purpose to a point, because you're all in. It's your purpose. It's your focus.
Yeah.
And at the same time, just like many adults who define themselves by their profession, when something doesn't go as expected, there's often a pretty big drop. Or a at least temporary situational depression, or longer, because, like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? So I'd say the first step. So I'm very sorry to hear this, and it is a very common experience, especially when you get to the higher and higher levels. So the first thing is to really honor and acknowledge and give space for the devastation. Because a lot of times what we want to do is, we start with the pep talks, because seeing our kids in pain causes us pain, and then makes us worry, and then we engage into fixing it, problem solving, for them and for us. However, they do need time to grieve that this path, this dream, as they saw it, is coming to an end in this way.
Yeah.
And so, first, space. Allow for the time and the space. And even if there's some really, like, low points and some lethargy, and I don't want to do this, and I'm having trouble eating, and I'm having trouble sleeping, we never like that, but we don't want to raise the alarm bells right away, because it is often a natural response to devastation and severe disappointment and grief. Now, as a little time goes on, that is when we want to, first of all, help them stay involved in the other aspects of their life, like school, friends. Maybe there's some other things that they were into and they like doing, whether it's outdoor activities, because it's really important to stay connected to the other parts of oneself.
Yeah.
And then, depending on it, you really get to see how much someone ultimately loves the sport versus is totally tied to this version of success and acceleration and advancement. Because there's, in the competitive soccer world, for example, there's lots of levels, there's lots of teams, and as we know, unfortunately, like, you often pay to play, in the sense, but so unfortunate that there is a resource barrier, but also there seems to be lots and lots of opportunities on other teams. Now, this is about now widening the lens to see if someone is willing to do that. Now, again, I'm saying this over time, because you want to take some time with this. And then I have a quick story. Because a lot of times these athletes also have other sports. They may have put them on the back burner because they focused on their one sport, but they're beginning high school, and there's lots of different sports teams. There's lots of different ways to to participate, to have friendship, to be part of a team. And it's just, we had another podcast that I think that came out last month that talked about the sports industry,
Right.
and how one of the unfortunate parts is in the competitive teams that cost money. Often it would take kids away from their high school teams, and then they completely lose the whole experience of playing for your high school. So I want to throw that there. And now here's a story, what is an inspiring motivation story. A close friend of mine, one of his kids plays college football, and he has put so much time and effort into being a college football player for a Division I team. And what has happened with the portal is that no matter how many rungs you climb in your position, every year, new players from other teams come in and now are even getting paid to come in to be above you.
Yeah.
So what happened was, in this situation, he wasn't cut, but he saw the writing on the wall. And he, it's sort of like cut by not being cut, which is, hey, we still want you on the team at the 5th or 4th position. And 2 new guys are going to come in every year that are seen as, star players.
Yeah.
He just saw he couldn't do it anymore. And so he made the tough decision to take himself out. And the pivot was, one of his other loves was rugby. And he pivoted and is now pivoted to high level playing for the college in rugby. And it feels this whole new spirit. So devastating, the decision, but then what else could it create for him?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, very well stated. I think it's a hard lesson, and heartbreak and disappointment when it comes to our our pillars, our aspects of self. It's devastating. And for younger athletes who have been invested in, say, one path for such a for what feels like their entire lives, because their lives have not been that long yet up to that point. So it's a big part of their life. It could be their life. And while it's such a bummer, but
yeah, it is.
As far as that lesson of exploring and seeing what other opportunities there are and what else you may enjoy is huge. What else might give you fulfillment? It doesn't have to just be one thing that brings you that fulfillment, brings you that sense of self, that sense of community. And so, like you said, give time to the grieving process of grieving this loss of not making it on this very competitive team, and then that gentle encouragement to figure out what the next steps are. And maybe have some ideas up your sleeve that can help in the brainstorming. But I would also suggest the timing has to be right. And I think as a parent, you'll know when the timing is right. Otherwise, our teens will not be receptive to anything that we are saying because we are saying it.
Yep.
And but best of luck. And I know it stinks right now, but this will pass and on to greener pastures, as they say. Okay. This is a good practical question for question number 3. And by practical, I mean, this is a day-to-day. This is a day-to-dayer right here. How do I get my elementary school twins back on a school sleep schedule?
Yes, the good old sleep schedule. Summer is so fun. We get to be more lax, or if we're traveling or camping on, it's just gets to be loose. Well, You just got to do it. I mean, basically, depending on who your kid is, what age they are, and what seems to be a reasonable time for bed so they get there, often at elementary school, it's thought to be like 9 to 11 hours. Like the sleep
Yeah.
deprivation really starts in middle school, unfortunately, and high
Yeah.
school, which there is a big movement against, or, to get that sleep back. But
Mhm.
elementary school is thought to be 9 to 11. And your kid well enough to know who can do it with a little less and who absolutely can't. That being said, if you have a few, some families do the same bedtime for both, and other families stagger the bedtime based on age, right? So if you have a 7-year-old, is going to go to bed possibly a little earlier than a
Mhm.
9-year-old or a
Yeah.
10-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, but it really is just talking about, hey, it's educating. We got to get back on the schedule, which I know is hard. It's hard for us too. And this is the time that we're going to have start getting ready for bed. And here's because many people have their routines of the stories and the back rubs or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And here's the time that we're going to have lights off. And you might not be able to fall asleep right away at first because our bodies have to get used to this. But we know over time our bodies do get used to it.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's some parents who are really kind of militant about it, and there are other parents who are much more like laissez-faire and
Mhm.
really sort of and both approaches are fine. It's just knowing which one is going to work for your family,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
It
different
really
kids
is.
need different things. But as long as it's like, hey, there's a reason we're doing this bedtime, is because the science says like your brain and body needs this much sleep. And think about how you feel when you had this much versus you have this much. Like we want them to buy into it, as opposed to, we're trying to just get around the rule makers. Like we want them to
Right.
understand
Yeah.
there's reasons for this and buy into them.
Yeah. Yeah. I also would add to that, and again, this all, of course, depends on the household, but if you can get them off electronics an hour before you are
Oh,
planning for
very,
bedtime to
very
start,
important.
and I'll do you even better, if you can keep the tablets, the phones out of their rooms at night, have a family docking center. We've done that for years, so they can resist the temptation of getting on their devices. That might help as well. Now, again, it depends on the household.
Right.
That might sound like a very daunting concept, and it might not work for everyone, but that could be something worth considering as well. But if you can, at the very least, encourage getting off the devices, an hour before bedtime, so their brains can kind of recover from that stimulation, that may help as well too.
I'm so glad you said that. And I'm just reflecting on it's so like it's really funny to me that I didn't even think about that. And I'm thinking as you're talking, how did I miss that? And I have an answer. I have an answer.
Okay. Okay.
You are steeped in this with your teenagers right now. You are living it. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm not living it anymore. Like if you would have a couple years ago, I would have been like, oh man, like we don't have to do this anymore with
Yeah.
our young adult kids. It's like,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's just
Yeah.
it's amazing. So I
Yeah.
am grateful and for not having to deal with that part of the equation. And thank you for bringing this. It's so
Yes.
critical. It's so
It
critical
really is
to sleep. Yeah.
And what's funny is so now we've transitioned to a new phase where, okay, ladies, we're going to trust that you to have your devices in your rooms because we want you
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
get in the habit of plugging them in, charging them, so your devices are charged because you're so busy at school and you are there well beyond after the bell rings at the end of the day with your various activities. So you have a charged device where you can reach us if you need us or update us on what's going on with the activities. But we will know if you are using your devices, later than you should be. So we are taking steps forward with trusting and observing responsible electronics use, because that's an important skill as they
Oh
do
yeah.
age out of the house, and
Right.
and it's one that we as adults are working on too. And so I think it's we are trying to have this. We are in this together, and
Right.
the bedtime thing doesn't ever not become a thing, but there becomes a point where you can't say, your door's shut, you're in bed,
Right.
because teenagers, they do their thing, especially as they get older. So
They
you
do.
just want to try to um, have them develop somewhat healthy habits. So at some point, when they start feeling tired, they realize that, okay, several years ago, when mom and dad were taking us off our devices at this time before bed and telling us to wind down, and they were right. I know how to fix feeling this tired. So
Yes.
yeah, but
That's a very good point
yeah.
of that, um, especially being in high school and the end of high school, the last 2 years is dress
Mhm.
rehearsal for going away and living on your own.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if we are
Yes.
controlling everything and don't give them the opportunity to learn how to have self-control, self-regulation, you can't just expect them to it magically appear when they're in the dorms or living somewhere else all by
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. 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 And it starts in elementary school.
Mhm.
It starts with establishing healthy routines.
Yes.
And so as parents out there of your elementary school twins, I think this is Dr. Dan's advice is spot on, and just, you got this. Know that you got this, and it'll pay off. It'll pay off. Okay, question number 4. We just moved to a new state, several states away from the city our daughter grew up in, and she is starting a new high school as a new freshman in our very small town. She does not know anyone, and we want to support her making friends. A lot of issues swirling: city versus town, big schools versus small schools. Please help. And before you get to your response, our producer, Laura, did a little research on this common worry for all parents who are faced with relocation. And she shared a USA News article with us, which we will surely have in the show notes. All right, to you, Dr. Dan.
Yeah, basically, the article confirms that this is a very, very common worry for
Yeah,
parents, right?
yeah.
Our kids making friends in new schools, new cities, new towns, new areas. So, really common. And this is a big transition. This is a huge
Mm-hmm.
transition. So,
Yes,
I'm sure this
yes.
transition was very thoughtful because transitioning at the beginning of a freshman year is a often a much better transition when everyone is, even though small high school still it's or small town, it's still new to everyone going to the high school as opposed to coming in the middle, which of course has to happen at some
Yeah.
point. So I'm very thoughtful about doing it then. And yeah, just moving anywhere is big when you're a teenager. Moving from bigger city to smaller town, that's an adjustment. You said our town. It might be that it's one of parents' hometowns.
Could be. Hmm.
That if you're going home, you also have some connections, and that can be helpful. Having connections to the small town than being new.
Yeah.
I think if we think about small towns, there's two sides to the coin, right? There's always the upside and maybe the less than positive upside. So, upside, smaller town, people are often very friendly and welcoming and know everyone. And so, you can meet people quicker and
Yeah.
there's a network of
Yeah.
people that are all
Yeah.
connected. The other side is, people have their relationships and their cliques and they've been going to school together forever. And sometimes it's harder to break in.
Hmm.
That being said, the new shiny person, especially in a small town, often is really intriguing to
Yes.
people, right?
Yeah.
So it's also trying to help your child realize that when towns are small and there's not a lot of new stuff going on, people like new stuff. They also like new people, and it's an opportunity. So I think about giving space, being aware of our own worries and how our own worries are going to be projected onto our kids, amplifying their own normal worries. So we really need to stay kind of balance ourselves, ground ourselves, and say, like, yeah, it's going to be a transition, but point out all of the history of strengths and friendships and positive attributes that people like. You want to help. You want to
Yeah.
remind, like, make sure that they're them. Let me say this differently. You want to emphasize how important it is for them to be themselves, because at this age there's a lot of
Yes.
conforming and peer pressure, and ultimately that will not serve them well. Is to remember who they are. There might be some different cultural norms that they will pick up on, whether it's dress and want to dress
Hmm.
differently, and I
Hmm.
mean those are very normal things. But in terms of
Yeah.
the core elements of your child, for her to be remember who she is, and then what are all the opportunities? Sports is a great way to make friends. I mean, so many people make friends through um, cross country team, the soccer team, the football team, the softball team, you name it. Theater, the theater
Hmm.
groups. If your child happens to be into theater, tend to be really tight groups of people who
Yeah.
are very
Hmm.
accepting. I'm saying this generally speaking, and also it's really important to remind them of the basics. When you walk by people, look at them, smile, and say hi. Like, give them the opportunity
Yes.
to make a connection.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot
Yeah.
of times when we're
I
shy,
love
we're
it.
looking down, maybe there's a hood on. All again, totally understandable, but it makes it hard for connections. At lunch, that, oh gosh, where do I sit? Who do I sit with? I mean, I actually remember that my freshman year walking around the main quad, like, who am I going to sit with? Um, so one idea is, approach, if you're not invited, if she's not invited, approach people who are sitting by themselves. Like, make so
Yeah.
you can create connections as well.
Yeah.
Um, but big picture, completely normal. And it often does take time. Sometimes there's a quick bestie that happens, or a connection through a sporting team or a club, and that's
Hmm.
amazing. But it's going to take a little time, and freshman transition, like that year is usually a transition into high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Period. End statement. It's a transition.
Hmm.
Uh yeah, and just like you said, I think that, right, sports, theater, and then other interest clubs that are offered by the school. And a lot of these clubs are student organized and student run, and so they want people to join their clubs, and that will also, I think, give your child an opportunity to connect with some assistance, right? Because these student run clubs, they want to have a good club where people feel comfortable being part of this club. And so that could ease your child into a group setting where they make some friends as well. So again, just, as you said, as we've said, I think this entire show, acknowledge the challenge. If they come to you and they're feeling down and feeling lonely, don't just jump right into problem solving mode. Make sure to acknowledge, and you as a parent, be patient and encourage them as well to be patient, and that it does take a little time, but things will be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question though. Really great question. Okay, grand finale. Final question. I had chuckled a little bit when I read this one. So, question number 5. Do you think parents should allow middle school teen children to ignore us? Our two daughters often don't answer us, spend time alone, but together with each other, and generally it feels like they bypass us.
Oh, yes. The good old adolescent phase when they turn to the dark side. Now, they don't all turn to the dark side. So that is one of the myths, but there is a period of time when often teenagers, adolescents go inward, want more privacy. The doors are
Yeah.
closed, as you talked about, and it's really normal. It's
Yeah.
really normal. So positive that they hang out with each other. So just want to say, from a parenting perspective, let's just focus on a positive here. Like, they're connected with each other as opposed to just being isolated and on their phones. So that's a good
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
Now, I find the wording is interesting, and it made me, it made me smile, in the sense of, like, should we should we allow? And the reason I'm saying that, I know exactly where this listener is coming from.
Yeah.
But for those of us who have had people this age, raising these teenagers, like allow is a funny thing because it's like they do whatever they want. Like, do we really have a choice? The question of the allowing is, what do we do about it, right? Like, should we punish them? Should we just accept it? And so I just want to point out I'm just acknowledging the powerlessness that comes
Right.
from this, because
Right.
if we're parenting through relationship and respect, it can feel very powerless as opposed to the more controlling parent who is trying to punish when things don't go right.
Yeah.
And what happens is, if we quote don't allow it, it's usually not doing anything in a more than a superficial thing, because our kids are just getting more pissed off at us and
Right.
want to spend less time with us. So
Yeah.
I think the first thing is just to observe this and be like, what's going on? What's the
Yeah.
change?
Gather some
And
data.
and what are they ignoring? I think what we find a lot of the times is when our kids start ignoring us, we're actually saying a lot of things that sound pretty stupid and things that they don't want to hear. Like we're kind of micromanaging them, we're parenting them in a way that they're just like, I don't want to even deal with this. Like, you guys are idiots, right? They might not say it, but they're passively telling you
Right.
by their non-response to you.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this for also just for a little humor, because all of us end up being way less cool than we thought we might have been when our kids go many times through this age. Like, we're like, they want to be with us, right? Like, yeah, they want to, like, before this, they want to be with us. They want to sleep with us. They want us to read to them. They want to hold our hands. They want hugs and kisses. And then all of a sudden it's like, do not drop me off here a block away. I don't want anyone to see you. And all of a sudden you just turn into like a complete, I don't know, like embarrassment. And so there's some of that, I think, going on here. But I think it's also is, I like asking, like, hey, I notice a lot of the times you're ignoring me. Can you give me some feedback? Like, we don't have to talk all the time, but I'd like us to have an understanding with one another. I do have some things I'd like to say, and maybe there are other things that you just don't want to hear from me. So it's trying to actually have them step into it and say that scary thing. Could you give me some feedback? Because if I'm doing something to really annoy you, I'd like to know about it.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the next step with that, of course, is like values and how we treat people. But if you go straight there first, again, you usually get a shutdown response. But then it's like, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but when you do ignore me, it doesn't feel good to me. So I just want to understand it better to see if there's a way that we can agree to communicate respectfully to one another.
Yes. And I think it's a brilliant opportunity, a great time for our kids to begin to understand that, oh, hey, mom and dad are human beings. They're people. They're not just mom and dad. They're people. And when you open the door with the feedback question, and then it opens the door for dialogue, and then it opens the door for being able to show a little bit of that human side to our kids.
Right.
And it's going to suck. You're going to be nervous, I'm sure. But it's one of those things that, again, we keep coming back around to time here, but it is going to pay off over time, and it's going to foster better communication. Is there always going to be great communication with our teens? No. It's somewhat like a wave. There are, peaks and there are troughs, but you're establishing a foundation at this age when they are becoming more aware of their own identities. They're making choices for themselves of what they like, what they don't like, and they might not like you in that moment for whatever reason, but they always love you. That is all. The love is not stopping because they are ignoring you. And there will be days where you probably will be grateful that they're ignoring you.
Yeah.
But like Dr. Dan said, start off with a discussion where you're asking for feedback, and that will also make them say, mom and dad must and again, probably not in these, I'm thinking of this in adult terms, but they will think of like, mom and dad must think that I'm mature enough that they want feedback from me on their parenting. And that can also change the dynamic, because
Right.
then it's, you're still a parent-child relationship, but they realize that, hey, what I'm saying matters. Like mom and dad will still, our mom and dad, we call the shots ultimately, but what I'm saying matters. Wow. Maybe I shouldn't be ignoring them.
It could shift. It definitely could shift the energy. And the final thing that I thought of as you were dropping your wisdom is looking back, and there are, times that these conversations with my kids worked. I mean, they were useful and they had a positive outcome. And there are other times that it didn't. And I remember writing a few letters when the talking wasn't working, or I was feeling like there wasn't a space for it, or just being kind of shut down. Some letters were powerful. It was an opportunity to really like get my thoughts down in a way that I really could choose my words and leave them with the letter, and that had an impact.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot, and I think the last thing I'll say is it's an emotional subject, and it's hard not to go into these conversations with our kids with the full force of that emotion. But in my experience, the conversations have gone better when I've had the opportunity to kind of process the emotions around it, and then to be able to approach it with that, a little bit of that separation, right? Of experiencing the emotion, not shoving it down, but not having that be a major component of the conversation. Because as we also know, at this age, our adolescents are very quick to ramp up emotionally as well. And if you've got two people in a conversation that are all emotion, the outcome's probably not going to be that great. And this is where, as a parent and as an adult, you can regulate your emotions a little better. So just keep that in mind. Great questions. Really, really great questions today. But we say that at the end of every single
because it's true.
One of us, because it's true. We
Yeah.
love our listeners.
Yes.
Incredible community.
Yes.
So, Dr. Dan, I will say, bring us home.
Okay, Phil. Let's do it. All right, everyone. This is your little reminder that our promo codes and links from all of our incredible advertisers are now online at exactlyrightmedia.com/promos. Just scroll down until you see Parent Footprint. You'll find all our latest deals. And thank you for supporting us and our advertisers through their offerings. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being a part of our amazing community and bringing your awesome people to us. I will leave you with those two things I always do. Try to be that person you want your child to become, and ask yourself the guiding question, what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Mountain Spring High, composed and performed by Gabriel Lewis. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast, and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com.